You're with Julian on the Brown Note, and Are You a Racist? The fun game that all the family can play. Now, this is in regard to the previous piece on the Australian voice and Indigenous Australians, but it's a fun game you can play in any country where you have a population of a particular race that may cause you consternation or that are in the news a lot for perceived behaviour in a negative manner. And there are signifiers to it. And probably the first signifier to being a racist is you deny that racism exists. You think that there is no such thing towards the group that you are racist towards. But you also believe that racism exists towards you. And that's a commonality, which is you think that there isn't actually any racism towards this group, but actually you are subject to it yourself. Normally this is the domain of, in my case, in the Western world, of the white European. It's a very common thread to deny that what is befalling another group is the result of a systemic thing. But you yourself, despite being at the top of the table as far as races go when it comes to employment and so on, you are actually subject to racism because you're not allowed to be racist yourself towards any other group. You are continually attacked, you feel. So that's signifier number one. Signifier number two is a very clean view of what racism is. So do you feel, say in Australia's case, that there isn't any racism actually towards Indigenous Australians, that they've had a lot given to them, a lot of stuff has been given to Indigenous Australians over the years, and they have benefited from a largesse, from guilt that's given them lots of stuff, but that they've still failed? You see, what you're doing here, perhaps without realising, is saying that they have failed because of their race, which makes you a racist. If you can define the paradigm of believing there is no institutional or systemic racism towards an Indigenous population, but that they have still failed despite being given everything, I would like to hear how you can define that as not saying their failure is based on their race, rather than judging them by the content of their character. Because you're saying that they haven't had to deal with that racism, that they are being given a lot but still failing as a race, but that it isn't because of their race, which is a contradiction, and that would indeed make you a racist. Don't worry if it makes you upset, because no one wants to be called a racist. And the third major signifier of being a racist is, and this applies to sexism and homophobia and pretty much everything, do you find yourself voting the same way every time, but each time claiming it is for a specific reason this time? Yet if you find out that specific reason is wrong, say in the voice vote, say you felt like you opposed the voice because Indigenous Australians could cancel Australia Day, and you found out that wasn't true, but you still opposed the voice, then that's because you're a racist, because you are searching for a reason to oppose something that you always oppose, unless you think that it's a coincidence. And you're not dumb enough to think that it's a coincidence that you always oppose these things. If you can go through all of the things that you oppose the voice for and find out they're wrong, you will invariably still oppose the voice, and it's because you're a racist. Because you're searching for reasons to oppose something you naturally oppose. Now, I want to be clear about something here. It's in human nature to feel that people who are like you, that look like you, that have the same skin color and culture are your friends, and that people that don't are not. That is natural human nature. That's not racism because you cannot help it. No one can not feel more akin to their own kind. It's a biological trait that goes through the animal kingdom. What is racism is if you understand that and choose to feel a certain way. So you're actually judging people not on the content of their character. Even if you feel naturally slightly funny about it, that's okay. If you are not judging them. But if you are judging them, that's where the racism starts. Racism isn't the fear of the different because it's impossible, really, not to feel that. It's if you act on it. Racism is about your actions. You can feel inside slightly dodgy about another group of people. It's when you act and judge them. And it's entirely within you to reject that worst version of yourself. And you can do so despite your parents instilling it in you, wider society fomenting it in you, the news media that you get actually praying up to it. The Murdoch press has spent a lifetime in trying to divide and conquer the working and now middle classes with spurious things like dole bludgers, people of different ethnicities coming over here and stealing your jobs and mugging you. This is a commonality of the Murdoch press, who are the very highest elite, actually trying to turn the rest of us against each other instead of against the elite, who we should all be turned against. If there was an elitism, a version of racism against the elite, I would be 100% guilty of that. You can reject this about you. You can accept the better angel of your nature. Because inside you know it's wrong. So perhaps have that conversation with yourself. It is not impossible for anyone to change. You aren't part of this great cabal. You just think you are because you are told you are, and because it feels warm and fuzzy to be that way and to blame a lot of things on other people. It isn't true. So if you are a racist, why not be on